stay a few hours with him to share his knowledge and experience. So I would like to invite you all to pay attention to join with this wonderful opportunity. And so this is time for you. You can spend few hours, if you like, if time permitted, to give your knowledge and experience benefits for all our brother monks and with seminaries, also our residents here in Bhavana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bante Sadajiva, for introducing me and welcoming me for the talk. I feel very honored to be here, for having the opportunity to talk to you all with the leadership of Venerable Bante Ji, Bante Gunaratana. And I have been a distant student from him, of him for a long time. Not a direct student, but of course, I would have been more fortunate had I been a direct student of his. Now, let this be a dialogue, as I have already given my title as a dialogue one, led by me for today's talk, based on Madhupindika Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya. The venerable monks, I think, and also some of our lay brothers and sisters have already gone through this sutta, perhaps, but we have not announced this earlier. Therefore, I don't know whether you had the opportunity to read the sutta before. Somehow I wanted to highlight certain aspects of this sutta, especially to remember and to apply certain aspects of that sutta for our own practice, if possible. I have given the handout as you have now. From the Madhupindika Sutta or the Majjhima Nikaya, I started with the Pali quotation. Some of you are very familiar, the Venerable monks. And when I read out, and also when I share my knowledge, and please sometimes make it a dialogue. And also, you may contribute your own, knowledge and ideas, so that we can, improve our Dhamma discussion, our Dhamma dialogue, for our own sake. It's not that I am giving a talk for your sake, but I'm giving a talk for my own sake, for my own learning. So please help me in the way possible. When you hear the Dhamma based on this particular sutta, I hope I try to make it applicable and as simple as possible when we talk about how the Buddha taught us the Madhupindika Sutta, although it is Venerable Mahakaccana who made it simpler and more. It was a dialogue between some young monks, and Venerable Mahakaccana helped the young monks to understand it better, and the Buddha later approved and applauded how these Venerable monks discussed it and understood it. As I read the Pali, for some of you might not be very familiar with the Pali terms, but please feel free to, listen to it and make yourself familiar with the terms. Ekamantang tito ko dandapani sakko bhagavantang etada vocha kingvadi samuno king kimakhaiti. This is a question. When Buddha was seated under a Belua tree, in Sinhala we say belly tree, Belua, that is as translated by Bhikkhu Bodhi, it is called Bilva, sometimes wood apple, they say, but let us say Belua tree anyway, is a sapling. Lactica means a small tree, I mean, sapling. And when Buddha was seated in a park, after lunch, Buddha normally, go to a neighborhood park and sit there in seclusion. That is a kind of meditation, I mean, that he had been continuing with. He sets examples for us to also do the same. So Dandapani is a young man with a stick in hand. That is why he is called Dandapani. Danda is a stick in hand. He looks like a proud, gentleman from a maybe high-class family, so to say. And he came to the park and seeing the Buddha seated under a Belua tree, asked the Buddha, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And that sort of a discussion. Maybe, they exchange a certain courtesy, also what you call exchange their greetings, as it is said also. But he was leaning on the stick and put the question to the Buddha. Kim Vagi Samano, King Kimakhaidi. What is your view, Bante? What is your teaching? What do you normally teach? So, in a way, just to invite Buddha to introduce himself. Then Buddha's answer was not that clear to him. Buddha said, Yathavadiko also Sadevake Loke Samarake Sabrahmake Sasamana Brahmania Pajaya Sadev Manusaya Nakenachi Loke Vigaya Dittati Yathaja Pana Kame Visanyutam Virantam Tam Brahmanam Akatang Kating Chinna Kukucham Bhavabhavi Vita Tannang Sanya Nanu Senti. Evam Vadiko Ahangavaso, Evam Akhaidi. I read the Pali and I also have given the translation by Bhikkhu Bodhi here. Dandabani the Sakyan, while walking and wandering for exercise, also went to the great wood. And when he had entered the great wood, he went to the Bilwa sapling, that is the wood apple tree or Bilwa sapling, where the Blessed One was, and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood at one side, leaning on his stick, and asked the Blessed One, "What does the recluse assert? What does he proclaim? That means, what do you teach? What is your main teaching?" Then Buddha's answer, "Friend, I assert, I proclaim," that means I teach, such a teaching that one does not quarrel with anyone in the world, with its gods, its maras, and its brahmas, in this generation with its recluses and brahmins, its princes and its people, such a teaching that perceptions no more underlie, sanya, no more underlie that Brahmin who abides detached from sensual pleasures, without perplexity, without confusion, shorn of worry, that means no worries, free from craving from any kind of being. So just to simplify, I wanted to just put it like this underneath. In other words, this sage that is referring to the Buddha. There is a seat, actually, there are a few seats here. Why don't you, please? Yeah. Anybody would like to have a seat here? So, in simple words, this sage means the Buddha, whose perceptions no longer underline, no more underlie, whose perceptions do not lead him any longer. Perceptions mean knowledge simply. So when we learn something, our knowledge will overcome us. Our knowledge will lead us normally. That is what Sutra says now. And also when we, read things, when we learn things, we get sometimes, we become dependent on what we have heard, what we learn. You might have heard about in indoctrination, and also that we normally get brainwashed sometimes. That is the extreme part of it. When you get brainwashed, we behave according to what we have learned. And normally when we read something, from others, we accumulate knowledge. Even without reading, we might experience, our feelings are there, and our perceptions depend on our feelings. Often we hear in society, that is what I feel. That is what I, understand. This is my knowledge. That attitude is there. So this sort of knowledge, if this knowledge doesn't overcome us, doesn't lead us, doesn't, manipulate, then that is a development. That is an advancement, so to say. So when we now listen to, when we read this sutta, there are certain emphasis from, certain places here, that we need to also see whether we are dependent or we are overcome by our own feelings, our own perceptions, our own knowledge, by reading a book, by reading a newspaper, listening to a TV, listening to a talk. Do we have a critical approach to any of these, what we have learned, what we learn from others? Or do we blindly get something and, change ourselves without having any meaning, without any purpose? That is something that we need to, see whether we do that. Mindfulness will help us for that. So we have to be aware, is it applicable to us personally? We were talking about this. Venerable Samhita has written a book. Before I left Sri Lanka, I was teaching at Peradeniya, as you have already heard from Bhante Saldajiva. Venerable Samhita wrote a book called Adhyapane Novana Adhyapanya. How would you translate it into English, Venerable Samhita?
The education which is not education.
Yeah. Education which is not education, which should not be called education, something of that kind, isn't it? So that attitude. So when we get an education, are we blindly led by the education? Are we just merely dependent on that education? Or can we stand on our own feet? Can we stand on our own, personality? And that attitude is given to us through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the only way for that advancement. So for us to stand on our own feet, we need to be open-minded. We need to be aware where we are, how we are, what we learn, what we practice. So the honest feeling, the honesty must be the foundation there. The, frank, honest, standpoint. That's sort of a setting we need for us to stand on. So in simple words, as I have already said with, underneath the paragraph, this sage whose perceptions no longer underlie, his perceptions means his sanya, his understanding, his knowledge does not underlie him any longer. He says that. Buddha said that to that young man. whose perceptions do not lead him any longer, as he abides detached from sensual pleasures. So this is referring to Buddhas being detached, completely, free, completely free from sensual desires, sensual pleasures, without perplexity. That means without confusion, without worries. There are no worries, free from any kind of becoming. So there's nothing for him to become. So that is the Buddha's, way of introducing himself to that gentleman. He did not understand this because he did not want to understand. He was so proud and he wanted to just see this, when the bird seated under a bailwood tree in the park, and without expecting him to give a profound answer, he just wanted to ask this, it seemed. And then what happened? After having said this, when this was said, Dandapani, the Sakyan, shook his head, wagged his tongue, raised his eyebrows in a sarcastic manner, and departed leaning on his stick. And that is you may come across people like this. If you, in your own life, if you happen to face a situation of that kind, while going by train sometimes, or while seated in a park, or just going somewhere, somebody coming to you and behaving like this, what sort of an attitude that you would have, that you would maintain? Maybe all of us have faced situations like this. And in such situations, can we get some examples from the Buddha? Buddha is not shocked here. Buddha did not expect him to be a disciple of the Buddha. Buddha gave the answer, profound answer, but it didn't suit him. He was not ready. He was not mature enough to understand the meaning. Then Buddha waited, Buddha spent some time still further. And when it was evening, the Blessed One rose from meditation. Meditation means this secluded, way that he spent the time in the park, And then went to Negro's park, where he sat down on a seat made ready for him and told the bhikkhus what had happened in the park. Then a certain bhikkhu asked the Blessed One, if you happen to report such a message when we go back home, imagine what we would have told our friends and colleagues and disciples or teachers. If parents were to tell the children, they would, have certain way of boasting. They would say something added to their conversations. This is what happened and what I said, something added from their egocentric perspective, perception. These are something for us to see. And Buddha did not, add anything. Buddha doesn't have to add anything. Buddha just, explain what happened for the good purpose, for monks to learn more. He was sharing his experience. Then when Buddha explained all this, how he said about that his own perceptions do not lead him. He is not, dependent on his own perceptions, etc. These monks, some of the monks did not understand it either, because it is so deep.
It's very profound.
It's very profound.
Even in terms of languages.
Yeah, in terms of, even when you translate, of course, Bodhi has done a marvelous translation here. You could make it simpler if possible, but still, it is very deep. Psychologically, very deep, actually. Then, these monks, did not understand it properly. Buddha, explained it a little bit further, because as to the source through which perceptions and notions tinged by mental proliferation beset a man. Beset is, that is to attack on all sides, because as to the source through which perceptions, I mean the knowledge or the notions or opinions, colored or tinged means confused with or the mixed with mental proliferation. If you have mental proliferation, this particular word is one of the key words in this text, in this context, in this sutta. It's a translation of papancha. Maybe you are familiar with the term papancha. Venerable Thanisara wanted to translate it into English. And the word that he used? Papanchaization. He wanted to use papanchaization for papancha. Is it clearer? No, it's not. You have to have more explanations, of course. That is because this word, as Bhante said, profound. It's a very particular word. And how is it derived? I mean, it's good to know. Per plus punch is the analysis. Per means specifically. Punch in Pali is to enlarge, is to maximize, is to diversify. If you diversify your concepts, if you maximize your concepts, specifically, per punch. Papancheti is a Pali verb. Papancheti, that is to papanchise. That is to proliferate, means enlarge, diversify, maximize conceptually. If we have our concepts, doubled and tripled, how do we maximize them? We are going to talk about it later more. But normally, I may repeat these words so that we try to, understand it better. When we maximize, when we multiply normally our concepts, we maximize or multiply by three particular factors. Tanha, mana, ditti. Craving, conceit, and views. Craving, that is to say that this is mine, etang mama. That is the way that we start our, in a subtle way. We have the tendency to own. See, the ownership, that this is mine, is the starting point of craving. So that is craving, tanna. Mana is asmimana, that I am. Because whenever we say that this is mine, an identity is born. What is that identity? Capital I. Some say that capital I normally some people have as big as the Ashokan pillar. Very high. One gentleman in a discussion said, isn't it? As
Maybe Eiffel Tower.
maybe Eiffel Tower is more suitable here. But Eiffel Tower doesn't look like I.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Capital I. That particular one is very tall and it looks like an I, capital I,
Modern peace tower
More than Peace Tower, is it?
in the view.
In New York. So all these towers are in our own mind, isn't it, Bhante? In people's mind, our own mind. And maybe others can see them, but not enough. We have to see ourselves, our own pillars, we have to see ourselves. So that is the, point where we need to stress. So, when we meditate, we can see those things. One time I remember Aya Kema was giving a talk in Uppsala University when she was, alive, and she came all the way from Sri Lanka to Germany and then from Germany to Sweden. And we were there and we had the opportunity to organize some lectures for her. And she gave the lecture at Uppsala University. And there, one professor asked her, Venerable sister, do you have a lot of bombs in your nuns' island? Then this sister said, oh yes, there are a lot of bombs, but they are not outside, they're inside. All the bombs in our mind, they blast quite often. And one bomb is called anger, and the other bomb is called craving, and still another, delusion. So we have such a lot of bombs in our minds, and they blast. And we have to watch. Then Professor asked some other questions. Then this Venerable Nun was very clever to answer these questions, and I don't want to go further along that line. But that is to say that we need to watch these egocentric attitudes, how they, come to our mind and to our words, to our way of thinking, to our behavior, in disguise mostly. That is why it is difficult. They come to us, suffering in general comes to us in disguise, because we are always in disguise. Therefore, we don't meet what is most important for us to see. Suffering that comes to us in disguise. You have a question, Bhante?
Thank you for your very erudite talk so far. I was reading the footnotes in the Majjhima Nikaya to this sutta, and it's interesting. It reminds us that the Brahman that the Buddha is talking about is himself. It's easy to get confused and think that he's talking about the person who asked him the question. He's actually referring to himself as not being subject to these defilements, essentially. And then the other thing was that, interestingly, this Brahmin who asked the question, either before or after, was aligned with Devadatta. So there's a good chance, when you think about it, that he approached the Buddha in order to find criticism, with a view in mind, with some type of attack for whatever response he would have given, which has happened to the Buddha several times. And, the Buddha picked up on it. And, not just the question, as you mentioned, the demeanor. This guy was a young guy walking with an expensive cane as if he was all that. And, the Buddha picked up on that and knew right from the beginning what he was going to be asking him about or trying to find fault with him. So was able to articulate this wonderful sutta spontaneously, but probably, knowing exactly where he was going with it.
Yeah, this actually leads us to reflect on our own mind. I mean, not only that Dandapani had the opportunity, but he missed it. And other monks got the opportunity. And now, today, we are getting the opportunity. So this is how the Dhamma is spread throughout centuries. With reference to Madhupindika Sutta, we can watch our own mind. Personally. That is how we are, we are supposed to practice. Anyway, let us continue a little further. Because as to the source through which perceptions and notions tinged with, colored by, mixed with these mental proliferations, all kinds of craving, conceit, and views attack us on all sides, If nothing is found there to delight in, these keywords are important. To delight in. If you don't find anything to delight in, anything to, welcome and to hang on to, then things will subside. Things will calm down. If you support, if you back something only, that will get the feedback from our own, mind, reactions, etc. Anyway, if nothing is found to delight in, that is to enjoy and welcome and hold on to, then these underlying tendencies like lust will come to an end. But that is not that simple, of course. This is the underlying tendencies are there in us. 7 are named here, listed here. Satta Anusaya, Anusaya means Anusaya. That is, sleeping in our mind. It's a dormant, all these factors are in a dormant level. Nobody is angry now, and we nobody is been attacked by, emotion, negative emotions. We all are, perfect, so to say. But if something, happened to arouse our feelings, if somebody puts the blame on us, unreasonably, if you cannot tolerate some injustice happening somewhere in society, there we see such emotions which are sleeping, dormant, arousing. And they come to a surface and we find a transgression level. All these anusayas have that 3 levels, layers, as it is discussed. When they are in a dormant level, we don't see them. And we all think that, we don't have any lust, no aversion, no, tendency of views that we get stuck, and no doubt, and no conceit, and no ignorance, etc. So these 7 anusayas are listed here. Underlying tendency to lust, underlying tendency to aversion, underlying tendency to views, underlying tendency to doubt, underlying tendency to conceit, that is I conceit, underlying tendency to desire for being, that is to become and to be, and underlying tendency to ignorance. So these tendencies will come to an end if you don't rejoice if you don't welcome them, if you don't, work for them and hold on to them, etc. That is how the technique is mentioned here. This is the end of resorting rods and weapons. This is how the sutta says. And that is the end of quarrels and brawls, that is violent fights, disputes, recrimination, and then bitter arguments. We argue against each other. And malice, that is hatred and hate, and false speech. Here, these evil, unwholesome states cease without remainder. So technique is given here, but of course, practice will take long time. Depends on the personality and the character, how much we make efforts, and how correctly we understand ourselves, and all that will matter. We just run to, what I wanted to specifically mention in the next few lines. When this discussion, was elaborated a little bit further by Venerable Kachana, because some monks could not understand this, what the Buddha said. Then they had, their private discussions to say, let us go to Venerable Mahakachana. Buddha had praised Venerable Mahakachana, who could explain things much better. I mean, better in the sense, good enough for us. Buddha could have done that, but, let the disciples also take different roles. So Buddha wanted Venerable Mahakachana to explain it anyway. So these monks also understood it, and they went to Venerable Mahakachana and got the things explained further. And then Venerable Mahakachana was praising the Buddha. So also Bhagava Jnana Jnanati Passam Passati. This phrase is very important. Jnanam Jnanati. Those who know Pali know the value of this. Jnanam is nominative singular. Jnanam Jnanati. That means that is working as the main agent of the sentence. Jnanam Jnanati. Passam is also nominative singular, working as the main agent. Just like when we say he goes, we need goes because if we use the third person singular, he. The same way, Jnanam represents the present, what we call nominative singular form, and it is like Tathagato and Jnanam Jnanati. Buddho, Jnanam Jnanati, Passam Passati. Jnanam Passam work as the adjectives of Buddha. Because in grammar, Jnanam is a present participle, Passam is also present participle, used only in one place. Yeah, where? Nominative singular only. It sounds like accusative. When I was, in my studies and teaching, I noticed many get confused with this. They think that jnana is accusative singular. Therefore, they think, that it is not the subject of the sentence. But actually, jnana is a subject. Pasang is a subject. And it can work very well with Jnanabhuto, Chakubhuto, Jnanabhuto, Dhammabhuto, Brahmabhuto, and Tathagato, Buddho. Buddho Jana Jati. In Sinhala we say Dhanna Dhani, Dhanno Dhaniti. We say it. The same style. Dhanna is Jana, Janati. Why is it important? You know, when Venerable Kachana talking about Buddha's knowing, it is not a second-hand knowledge that Buddha depends on. It is first-hand knowledge. That is the message that we need to learn here. First-hand knowledge. First-hand knowledge is something that we gain through our meditation, through our awareness, through our mindfulness. It's not a second-hand knowledge. Of course, we listen to talks, we learn something, still it is second-hand knowledge. We read books, it's still second-hand knowledge. We know, we say what you call for our samadhi, for our right view, we need some tools. What are the tools? Parato Ghosa, we say. Parato Ghosa is an important tool. Voice of others, testimony of others. Parato Ghosa. Ghosa means, voice, or literally voice. Voice of others, or just whatever available as a document for us to learn. And that is Parato Ghosa, one of the important factors for the Samadhi. And also we need to remember that Parato Ghosa also plays the role to support Michaditi. Parato Ghosa is a tool for Samadhi as well as Michaditi. Michaditi is wrong view. And but Yoniso Manasikara is the other tool, which is only wholesome. Yoniso Manasikara, that is, supporting us to gain the first-hand knowledge. We need to reflect, we need to introspect, we need to be mindful for us to personally experience something. And that personally experiencing attitude is there, the last quality of the Dhamma. Pachattam veditabbu vinyuhiti. Knowing the Dhamma by the wise, to be known by the wise for each for himself and herself. That is Pachattam veditabbu. Pachattam means personally, each for himself. To be understood by the wise, each for himself. That is the quality of the Dhamma, as we all know. And so that is reminded. I mean, that is somewhere we need to, see the parallel between that attitude, that sort of explanation, and jnana jnanati passam passati. So Buddha is qualified with this knowing. It is not that, it is said in the translation, you see, knowing the Blessed One knows. Knowing, instead of knowing, we could say, Buddha who knows, knows. That is not a very good translation. Therefore, we have to say, knowing the Blessed One knows.
Professor, can you explain this jhana and passam? Is there any significance for having these two terms? Jhana and jhanati, and passam passati.
Yeah.
Both are related to knowing.
Yeah.
Right?
Jhana means one who knows, literally.
Passam
means one who sees.
Yes.
Yeah. So one who sees, that is the subject. One who sees.
So C can stand for like person.
Understand. Yeah.
Very fine.
Yeah. One who sees is the one who sees, really. One who knows is the one who knows. And there is no second person there. No second-hand knowledge there. It's the first-hand information, first-hand knowledge, because it's an eye-witnessing fact. That is why I compare it with the Sachi Katabang. Sachi. The word Sachi, aspirated chi, is very important. It sounds, it says personal, with one's own eyes. Sachi is combined with Sa plus Akhi. Akhi is eyes. Sa Akhi becomes Sachi. Sachi Kadabang is to make things, present for our own eyes. Eye witnessing, and we witness ourselves. Any development that we gain in our practice, seated, cross-legged, or, whatever way we sit, on a chair perhaps, and we breathe in and breathe out. If we compare everybody here, not two persons become, the same. our understanding is very personal. So if we can benefit from that personal awareness, guided by the Buddha, of course, guided by the venerable monks and nuns, and those who know the subject. Bhante Ji, of course, has written so many books and have guided us enough. And if you get the message, still it is second-hand knowledge. It will not, it will not take us to Nibbana. We have to make it our first-hand knowledge. We have to make it our eye-witnessing factor. Otherwise, however much we make efforts, we cannot make it, because we have to make it our first-hand knowledge. And that is the importance connected to Satchika Dharma. It is to be experienced. It should be, Nibbana or any, peace, any development, whatever you name, happiness, it is to be experienced. That is why it is said, there is no path to peace. Peace is the path. We have to walk it. There's no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. This said by various masters, but it is very much in line with the Buddha's teaching. Because Eightfold Path, for example, right from the beginning, it is peaceful. We don't have to wait until tomorrow. Whatever you do for peace today, you become peace. When Tisnan has written books called Being Peace. Being peace is not becoming peace. Not being peace is not to, learn about peace. It is to be peace. So that is very difficult when you talk in a language, That is how he was telling, in the being, we in the are. Tisnan often tries his best to make it something connected to Satchika Dharma, to be first-hand knowledge. So it is first-hand knowledge. You become peace. You are peace. Venerable Samhita, you are a philosopher.
So I was wondering whether we could add the point raised by the Buddha in the discourse of Rohitassa Sutta.
Which Sutta?
Rohitassa Sutta.
Rohitassa Sutta, yeah.
Because it is nicely and wisely said, Lokancha Loka Samadhyancha Loka Nirodhancha Loka Samadhya Nirodha, the origin of the world, the cessation of the world, and everything is proclaimed during this fathom-long body, isn't it? So the truth is nowhere to be found. Actually, it is striking distance of yourself. What is your say? So indeed, so does it mean either happiness, peace, or truth? If we want to really find that, we just go back to the deeper souls in the depths of our spirit. Go back to your originality, where we can find out the roots of our first-hand knowledge rather than second-hand roots of knowledge. Is that what you mean?
In a way, yes. Because when we refer to terms like retreat, we retreat to ourselves. Retreat means that, to my understanding. Going away normally, we are not with ourselves. We are scattered all over. But in a meditation retreat, what we do is we come back to ourselves. We gather ourselves. And that is the tool for us to experience something personally, to be experienced personally. And that is, thank you, Bhante. So as Rohitassa says also, dukkha or the loka, the origin of the world, origin of the world, cessation of the world, and the path leading to the cessation of the world, all are there within this fathom-long body, as it is said in the sutta. And at the end of many suttas, you may come across the term Dhammang Kayena Passati. And I try to understand this term, still I am trying. Dhammang Kayena Passati. You see the Dhamma through the body, by the body, with the body. Why not with the mind? When you make yourself the one who experiences, the reflections are there in your practice and in your personality, in your whole character. So it's a kind of there is a kind of a sutta connected to Mano Pavichara, you know, Attarasa Mano Pavichara, the behavioral patterns connected to all six sensory bases, all the six sensory bases. And at the end of so many suttas, when you talk about Kitagiri Sutta, towards the end, you start by saying Saddha Jatu Upasankamati, etc. Towards the end, you find when you Attang Upaparikati, when you investigate the Dhamma comparatively, etc., the meaning of the Dhamma, then what will happen? Dhamma Nijjanam Kamanti. Dhamma becomes the subject. Dhamma Nijjanam Kamanti. Dhamma will make us access the attention. Dhamma will take over, kind of. Dhamma becomes the subject. Dhamma Nijjanam Kamanti. I was taking the term Nijjanam, Nijjana in some Sinhala dictionaries, I saw some meanings connected to, knowledge or awareness, but rather it should be attention. Dhamma will give us the access to the attention of the Dhamma. I mean, Dhamma will give us, a chance to appreciate it. When we experiment and when you know the meanings of Dhamma, the Dhamma will give us a chance to, go deeper into it. Nijjanam Kamanti. Dhamma Nijjanam Kamanti Sati, it goes on to Leti, etc. But I wanted to pinpoint was Paramasatyam Kayena Cheva Sachikaros. Kayena Cheva. There again you find this term Kayena Cheva Sachikaroti. Sachikaroti, this term. Sachikaroti means to be experienced, and that you experience Paramasatya with your own, and holistically in a certain way, by body, with yourself. The whole representation of yourself is there as a development in that context. So along these lines, you can see Sachikatapang is something important in this context, but I'll just go a little bit further. I mean, because I see the time running so fast. But they asked me to talk even for some days. I didn't mind, but of course, our time should be, according to a schedule. And maybe some more talks are there. I mean, discussions are there that I can participate in the future. This particular thing I numbered here, this is something that I want you to pay more attention again. Venerable Ananda commented that this discourse was as sweet as a honey ball, Madhupindika. So the Buddha suggested the name, as the sutta, name it as the honey ball sutta. Why this sutta is called honey ball? Because Venerable Ananda uploaded. He said, "Oh, this is as sweet as honey ball." So Buddha said, "Why don't you name it?"
So this also as very deep as
It's so deep. It's also sweet, and that is why it is,
more we eat, more we get the taste.
That's right. And there are 7 points which I wanted to bring our attention to here. Let us take up the detailed meaning of the doctrinal summary of the sutta, which has psychological and epistemological implications, spread in the process of 7 steps. I wanted to add these particular terms like psychological and epistemological meanings connected to these 7 aspects. What are the 7 aspects? That we gain our knowledge through this process. This is the ordinary pattern of our knowing something. First, consciousness, to be there. But consciousness arises dependently. When we say consciousness arises dependently, consciousness is not by itself. Consciousness is a dependent, it arises dependently, dependent on eyes and material shapes. Sounds, the ear consciousness arises dependent on ear and sounds. Nose consciousness arises dependent on nose and smell, etc. Tongue consciousness arises the same way taste, and tongue. And body consciousness arises dependent on body and touch. And mind consciousness arises dependent on mind and thoughts. Briefly, consciousness arises, that is the first means of knowledge, so to say. And second means is the sensory contact. Again, contact needs consciousness. Consciousness, three aspects. Consciousness, the sensory inner base and the outer base, like sound and the ear. Inner base is the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Outer kind of objects are the sounds, visible things, sounds, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts. So when we say external and internal here, if you put the question to somebody, we all have dreams. Are our dreams external or internal? We tend to say they are internal, isn't it so? But they are external, according to this, way of analyzing. Internal basis, mind is an internal base. Thoughts and ideas, perceptions, whatever you name, that occur to your mind, they are all external compared to the internal base of our mind. So mind is the internal kind of sphere, and the external, even dreams. Although we tend to say that, oh yeah, dreams are internal. No. They are external compared to this way of understanding. So this is it's an important point I noticed. Anyway, consciousness, sensory contact, and it leads to feeling. So feeling arises. And after feeling, you find some changes happening between feeling and perception. Therefore, I would stress the fact that there is a turning point connected to feeling. So this is very important for the practice. I will take up that matter by reading these three passages below. Let us read, the names like perception, reasoning. Vitakka can be translated into English as reasoning or thoughts. Even the wholesome thoughts are vitakka. Unwholesome thoughts are also vitakka. Sometimes, Buddha himself had vitakkas. Buddha himself had vitakka. And those vitakkas are not the vitakkas that we all have. Buddha had the vitakka of thoughts of security, seclusion, peace, and paviveka and khema. These vitakkas were there in the Buddha. Khemang is peace and secure, and paviveka is what you experience when you have seclusion. That means completely free from defiling tendencies. Is a viveka, paviveka. We all have bodily calmness and bodily kind of relaxation and mental relaxation or mental calming, stillness, and then stillness or the subsiding completely, eradication of all defiling tendencies, which give us a paviveka. That means we experience seclusion like that. So Buddha had that. So that is also called vitakka. Just that. I wanted to mention that vitakka like words are not either wholesome or unwholesome. They can be either wholesome or wholesome. So in this context, of course, it is leading to egocentric attitudes now. Mental proliferations come. Mental proliferations, how we enlarge our concepts, how we proliferate. That means maximize our concepts. Conceptually, we experience diversifications of concepts, various way of multiplying them. And we multiply them by three aspects, as we said earlier: craving, conceit, and views. Craving comes when we have the tendency to say that this is mine, ownership, and craving, that is craving. And then the conceit comes because an identity called I will be born whenever we possess things. That this is mine becomes I am. And then that will become registered so that we will be stuck in that view. So I conceit and views. all these are related to egocentric attitudes. That is how we multiply our concepts. So we come to the last point. Until the last point, we are the leaders of our emotions. And when we have multiplied them enough, further maximized mental proliferations. When we have the last category, we become the subject, we become the object. And the mental proliferations become the subject, both grammatically and psychologically. That is the beauty of it. When we read the sutta, you see last one becomes psychologically as well as grammatically the subject. Papanja sanya sankha samudacharanti. Samudacharanti means that the plural verb used according to the mental proliferations. Manifold mental proliferations become the subject. And we don't have a place there. We don't have an authority there because our own emotions will overcome us, assail us, attack us, and we become overwhelmed by our own mental proliferations. And becoming overwhelmed is what is called Papanjanya Sanka Samudacharanti. Samudacharanti is also a beautiful verb, and it has, various nuances. Samudacharanti can refer to that you are filled with happiness also. You are overwhelmed with good qualities. That is also Samudacharanti. But when things are developed into egocentric attitudes, those negativities, whatever impurities you name as proliferations, conceptual maximization, all these Papanjasanya Sankha will make us victims. We become victimized by our own emotions, our own egocentric attitudes. So that is the story going on. But please read these 3 paragraphs very carefully. And of course, Venerable Jnanananda, we have to respect him very much for clarifying this very, very well. Venerable Katukurunde Jnanananda, as I have read, and I think he was the first to explain this very clearly. Dependent on the I and forms, the I consciousness arises. The meeting of the 3 is contact. This is very clear to all of us. With contact as condition, there is feeling. So this is very objective. There is no subjectual involvement here.
Impersonal.
Impersonal.
Dependent arising.
Dependent arising, you find here. Dependent arising. Because of this happens. Dependent on I and form, I consciousness arises. There's no kind of a class, caste, or creed involved here. Though you are, American or Sri Lankan, whoever you are, no matter what religion we have, we all have I consciousness that arises depending on what we see and our eyes. That is the way. So that is very objective, as when they said, impersonal. When you come to the second point, that is why I separated them, because this is how we normally have to do it. There the style of the sentence has changed. Instead of saying feeling arises dependent on contact, it is also there in text. In this context, something unique is taught. What is that unique message? What one feels. Here one comes. What one feels. An subject, object, predicate. All that is there. Earlier, we don't have that sort of 3 aspects. Here you have what one feels. In Pali, yang vedeti, that means yo yang vedeti. So tang sanjananti. That sort of a style. But we don't have that yo and so, but it is understood in Pali. When you say yang vedeti, whatever one feels, that one perceives. We can omit even that. What one feels, one perceives. Whatever one feels, one perceives. Perceives is perception, understanding. Whatever one perceives, what one perceives, that one thinks about or reasoning, reasons about, you can say. Whenever Jnanananda has used this term, reasons about, that one reasons about, but that one thinks about is, thinking is also vitakka anyway. Yang sanjanati tam vitakketi. What one thinks about or what one reasons about, that one mentally proliferates. There you find the maximization starts. How you multiply by craving, conceit, and views start from here. I mean, still it has gone on stealthily. But in this context, you find, your authority has come to this level. From feeling onwards, we become our own authority to think and to feel and to, argue against each other and to say that this is how I feel, this chair is comfortable, and I know that, all that sort of thing. And when we come to the last point, of course, we support our mental proliferations enough. Mentally, we conceptually maximizing, conceptually we proliferate, it enlarge. Concepts are maximized. Then we become the victim, giving the authority to our own emotions, our own process of maximization, process of diversification. Then the perceptions and notions tinged by or colored or mixed by with mental proliferation, that will become the subject. What is underlined here is the grammatical subject and psychological subject. That is important. Beset the man, that is to overcome or attack, assail with respect to the past, future, and present, forms cognizable by the eye, through the eye. So whatever we normally experience something connected to whatever we see in the past, yesterday, and some when we were in childhood, etc. We then bring them again and again. We make stories, stories along with whatever we have seen, whatever we have heard, whatever we have smelled, etc. So this is how, without our knowledge, our concepts will be maximized. Our concepts will be developed like that. So they are connected to eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. When we slowly digest this, we all can remember this. But when we reflect on them over and over again, that will be very supportive to our meditation. And I wanted to stress the fact that feeling is a turning point. Number two, as this is my personal experience, of course, you may share your experience as well. When I sit for meditation, in about half an hour, I feel sometimes painful in my knees and back sometimes. I spend 1 hour, it's okay because I'm now used to it. So seated 1 hour, I experience sometimes little irritation. Then sometimes I feel comfortable. And in such feelings, it's a turning point. When we have little irritation, we may say, isn't it good to hear the bell? When was Sadhajiva, why don't you hit the bell? my mind tells me. And then I ask myself, did I say it's a turning point for your own mind? Do you feel the feeling kind of painful one? Irritation happens. And do you see a little bit irritation there? Little bit anger coming there? Little bit hatred coming there? And do you find that sort of, way of refusing? And then we can address our own mind to check those aspects. If we can work these, that is how turning point starts. Because our pain, our irritation, our way of refusing is directly related to aversion. Dosa, dvesha, is related to dvesha. Do we really see that in our sitting? And also when you have little comfort, let us say that you have developed a concentration, or you have gone to a deep level of concentration, very pleasant. And then that pleasant feeling may give us a tendency to hang on to it a certain way. And then we may hang on to it in a kind of a way supporting lobha. Pleasant feeling, and we support the lobha. So we can question ourselves in such aspects. we can be mindful, of course. Reading this is one thing. Experiencing it with our own feelings is another. And then we can see, okay, I don't have any feeling of pain, nor do I have any feeling of comfort. I'm now okay. I'm now, in between. Kind of a upekha feeling. Neither, I use the term neither, I hear often you say neither. Sorry. Neither pain, neither comfort, no discomfort. Then in between. Sometimes we may think, oh, that is much better. But we have to remember, the Buddha reminds us, underneath you find ignorance. Underneath you find avijja. Why? That is geyaditupeka. Geyaditupeka means very much mundane level of neither pain nor comfort, neither present nor unpleasant. So if you think that, oh, that particular level is something I have to, maintain. Buddha say, no, there you have avijja, not knowing, that you are not mindful in that. So that is how we need to see the crucial point connected to feelings. It's a turning point. So we can elaborate on this at a later time, perhaps, with reference to another sutta connected to Geyasitupeka. And perhaps I can invite all of you to read one particular sutta connected to Geyasitupeka and Nekhamasitupeka, Ekasiteka, and so on. That is Indri, no, what is it called? Vitak,
Chula.
no. The third volume of the Majjhima Nikaya has one sutta. Vibhanga. What Vibhanga? Not Aranavibhanga. No? Not that either. Indriya.
Indriya Bhavana?
No, what is the sutta? Last. Yeah.
Chula is the last one.
Yeah, last one. One of the Vibhanga suttas. There you can find Upekha explained in many ways.
Indriya Bhavana is the last one.
Yeah, that is Majjhima Nikaya last one. But before that, there are. Huh? It's not that either.
That's all Vibhanga.
Yeah. One of the Vibhanga suttas, I remember it very.
So there's Chula Kama Vibhanga,
No.
Mahakama Vibhanga, Salayatana Vibhanga.
Salayatana Vibhanga.
Salayatana Vibhanga, Bande. Thank you. Salayatana Vibhanga. Salayatana Vibhanga. And please read it, and we can have a deeper discussion and connected. I mean, there is very, very useful discourse for understanding Upekha. Upekha and how we can overcome mundane levels of Upekha with the Nekkhamma levels of Upekha. And at the end, even that should be overcome by something very important called Atammayata, non-identification. Atammayata is non-identification. They are icon seat actually. Icon seat is the last. Mana is one of the last, what you call bondages to overcome. So that one, Atammayata, helps us to overcome all loopholes of Upekha. This Salayatana Vibhanga Sutta. So we can have more discussions connected to that. Sorry that I have taken little extra time, Bante.
No.
Is it okay? Yeah. So this leaflet or the what you call handout is there. Please go through this. At the same time, my next talks are there, isn't it so? So in my next talks, I would like to focus on Upekha and Atammayata in connection with also this one, so that we can see how we need to apply mindfulness to benefit from overcoming all these loopholes in our progress. Anyway, I'm very honored, as I said earlier, to talk to venerable monks like this. I'm used to talking to venerable monks while teaching at the university, but here is unique. I mean, special, because you are all involved in practicing. You're all involved at the same time. I know that venerable Bhante Ji, Bhante Gundarathan is also listening to me. So I'm of course indebted to his Dhamma, knowledge, and also writing so many books, and they are beneficial. I mean, of course, useful. So I'm very honored, and I'm indebted to such an opportunity, and also these premises offered to us for our practice. So I don't have words enough to thank. I'm very, very grateful to all of you, Bhante. We are all fortunate, I think. Thank you very much indeed.
So thank you so much.